Have you ever had that inner voice that whispers, "I just can't do this," right before you're about to take on something new? Or maybe it's a louder, persistent chant of self-doubt that seems to paralyze you, keeping you stuck where you are or not really moving forward in life. I get it. We've all been there at some point. Here's what I wish I knew sooner. For years, I thought putting things off was just putting my dreams on hold. What I didn't realize was that every time I listened to that doubtful programming and talked myself out of something, or just didn't do anything about it at all, I was strengthening that voice. So I wasn't staying where I was actually moving backward. I started thinking it was my intuition, guiding me to safety. And I did get one thing right. Our brains do try to keep us safe, which is why we get nervous or anxious when we step out of the familiar. But what I didn't know is that that is not my true inner voice. It's my reptilian brain. It's the part that's been running the show since our caveman days. I didn't realize that if I don't learn to manage that part of my brain, I never clear the weeds to hear the true inner voice, the part of my soul that's guiding me to my highest path, rather than just keeping me where I am so I don't get eaten by lions. Let me share a story. A few years ago, just before my son was born, I was overwhelmed with fear and self-doubt. I worried endlessly about being a good mom, balancing work and family, not losing myself in the new identity of mom. Well, one day, after a very sleepless night, mostly due to acid reflux and baby kicks, I looked in the mirror and said, "Melissa, you have no other choice. You're doing this, so be in it." There was no room for try or maybe. It was more like, I must. And you know what? Something changed. That fierce determination started to fuel my actions. Those next few months ended up being a productive powerhouse for my business. And guess what? I figured the rest out. Well, I am figuring the rest out. But honestly, something shifted in me that I still carry with me to this day. Like an internal agreement that if I'm in, I'm in. And that's powerful. Imagine moving through life with a sense of purpose and alignment, making choices not from a place of fear, but from a place of confidence. Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today, the concept of wise confidence. Our guest is Giovanni Dienstmann. He's been on the show before, and he actually produced a masterclass for our membership. He's a self-discipline coach, meditation teacher, and author who focuses on the intersection between wisdom, peace, and power. He's helped executives, entrepreneurs, artists, and pro athletes to live a more focused and purposeful life. So 3 key things we will learn are when we should take a different approach to self-acceptance, how to develop an aspirational identity, and the 3 pillars of self-confidence and how they can transform your self-image. Can we talk about back-to-school chaos for a second? The kids are getting back into routines, everyone's schedules are crazy, and suddenly you're supposed to have dinner on the table every night like some kind of magician. But want to know what I figured out? Shopping, planning, and cooking food really can be simple and stress-free, which is why I love Hungry Root. Hungry Root takes the stress out of mealtime by filling your cart with personalized picks and planning your week of meals, getting smarter with every order. With over 15,000 recipes to choose from each week, many ready in just 15 minutes or less, it's a huge lifesaver on those busy weeknights. I personally love their smart cart technology. It learns what I actually like and then recommends groceries, recipes, and supplements tailored to my tastes and needs. Plus, I love the kids' snacks section where I get these really easy snacks to just keep in the car or throw in our to-go bags or lunch boxes for those of you who need them. They screen out over 200 additives, including high fructose corn syrup and artificial sweeteners. They only source high-quality meat and seafood with no hormones or antibiotics, and they carry trusted brands like Oatly and Vital Farms. The time that I have gotten back has been incredible. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/mindlove and use code MINDLOVE. That's hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE. I've hired a lot of people over the years, and I can tell you the biggest mistake that most business owners make. They think posting a job and waiting is a strategy, but it is not. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs helps you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so that you can reach the people you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. One of the things that I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring so fast because the best candidates are already there, actively looking. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/mindlove. Just go to Indeed.com/mindlove right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/mindlove. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Let's be real about something. Workplace stress is not just part of the job anymore. 61% of people are dealing with stress levels that are way beyond normal, and it is not sustainable. I used to think that grinding through stress was some kind of badge of honor. Push harder, sleep less, ignore what your body was telling you. And it nearly broke me when I was working for startups. And look, maybe that voice in your head telling you to make a change is right. Maybe you do need to quit your job or completely flip your life. But whether you're making big moves or just trying to survive your current situation, you need tools to handle it well. And that's where therapy comes in. Modern therapy teaches you how to set boundaries without the guilt, how to trust your intuition instead of second-guessing yourself constantly, how to make better decisions from a place of clarity instead of chaos. And BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform with over 30,000 therapists. They've got a 4.9 rating from 1.7 million reviews because it actually works. You can talk to someone from anywhere, and you can switch therapists anytime if it's not the right fit. A vacation won't fix chronic stress, but the right support can help you navigate whatever comes next. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Unwind from work with BetterHelp. My listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/mindlove. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mindlove.
Wherever you go, whatever they get into, from chill time to everyday adventures, protect your dog from parasites with Credelio Quattro. For full safety information, side effects, and warnings, visit CredeliaQuattroLabel.com. Consult your vet or call 1-888-545-5973. Ask your vet for Credelio Quattro and visit QuattroDog.com.
We have our conditioned identity, which is how we were conditioned to be by our early childhood experiences, by our parents, the way we were brought up, friends, school, TV, and all of that. And that has imprinted certain beliefs inside of us. And for many people, they are limiting beliefs. They are not beliefs that help you be happy and successful in life. Now, that identity is not your truth. It's a story. It's the story of you. And when you realize that, then you can tell yourself a better story. You can choose to reinvent yourself.
Turn up your frequency with Mind Love. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
So you've been up to a lot since we last spoke, and I am curious, what has inspired your latest book into the topic of wise confidence?
So I realized that confidence is such an important skill or virtue or quality, however you see it. And many people who need more confidence, they don't necessarily connect with the way confidence is being taught and presented by, mainstream self-help out there. Because there is this concern, if you are more in the mindfulness world, in the spirituality and meditation world, you want to be confident, but not to the point where you become conceited or arrogant or selfish, domineering, or any of these things that are associated with overconfidence. And I realized that I had figured out that balance between the two, and many people were really interested in how can we be confident without being arrogant. So that is the birth of the book. That is the premise of the book.
I will say that confidence has been one of the biggest transformations I've experienced since really being more intentional about creating a life. And you're right, there's this resistance to it at first, especially when you have that sort of cognitive dissonance that it could be perceived negatively. And so I realized I had spent a lot of time resisting that. And because of that, I wasn't stepping into everything that I was capable of. So I'm curious, what do you see as the difference between being confident and being arrogant?
When you so there are three elements here. On one extreme we have self-doubt, on the other extreme we have overconfidence, and in the middle we have a balanced form of confidence. I like to call it wise confidence. So in the extreme of self-doubt, you underestimate yourself. You don't know what you're capable of. You're not betting on yourself. You defeat yourself before you even begin. In the other extreme of overconfidence, you are underestimating the path ahead. You think it's going to be easy. You think that the obstacles, there are not going to be any obstacles. And if they show up, it's going to be a piece of cake. And therefore, you're also not showing up with all that you've got because you think that all you need is a little bit of an effort to win. And in the middle, what I call wise confidence, you are not underestimating yourself. You are not underestimating the challenges. You are simply focused on showing up as your best self. That's it. Not thinking about yourself much. You're focused on showing up with the 5 elements of confidence: determination, integrity, self-belief, courage, and optimism.
Talk more about courage and optimism. How do those contribute to self confidence?
Sure. So courage is our willingness to face fear. It means that there is a situation in our life that we want to go there. It feels meaningful. It feels aligned with our values or with our goals. But at the same time, there's obviously a risk of pain, be it physical pain, emotional pain, financial loss, whatever it is. We see that there is a risk for pain. And courage is that willingness to say, you know what, I am going to move forward, even though there may be some experience of pain, even though there's a risk of loss, because this is important. And when you do that, you are saying that you trust yourself. You are saying that you're not afraid of the obstacles that may come. And that sends a message to your subconscious mind, to your nervous system, that you are strong, that you don't need to be extra careful and conservative, that you can take bold steps, and if difficult things come up, you're able to face them. So people who have more courage, naturally they experience more confidence, and vice versa. You can work on any of these two and you will get more of the other as well. And then optimism optimism is about believing that it's not about believing that things are going to happen your way always. It's not about having a naive expectation about reality. That leads to suffering. That leads to trouble. It's about believing that it can happen, that you can succeed, that whatever obstacle comes your way, at the end, you will be able to overcome it. You have that optimistic view of how life will unfold for you and of your capacity to overcome challenges. You don't expect that it's going to be easy. You expect that there might be lots of challenges, but at the end, you are having an optimistic view that you can achieve your goals and you can become the person you want to be.
one of the mindset shifts that I had to embody to start just living bigger in my life. And this was not that long ago. A lot of people seem to think that, oh, all of this was right before you launched your business. But I've realized that there's another level I need to step into as I grow. And one of those is that in regards to optimism, it's not this blind idea that everything's going to go well the whole time. It's that even when something doesn't, because that does happen, I'm going to be able to handle it. Even if I don't know how I'm going to handle it, if somebody like over planning, or I'm not sitting there trying to figure out every single thing that could go wrong and having a fallback plan for that, but just trusting that, hey, I'm strong enough that whatever comes up, I will find a plan. And when that time comes, then I'll tackle it instead of getting caught in that analysis paralysis. And that builds a lot of self-trust. And I think self-trust is such a big part of that belief because they go hand in hand, but they do have kind of nuances. And that reminds me of another topic that you cover in your book. You talk about having integrity in the context of self-confidence. Can you go deeper on that?
Sure. So integrity comes from the word integer, which means one. When many people think about integrity, they think of, being honest and sincere and playing fair and all of that. But at its deepest meaning, integrity is about being one. Being one is the opposite of being divided. When you want to take action, when you want to pursue a particular path, a particular goal, and part of you tells you that you shouldn't do that that's not for you, that you're not good enough, that it's not going to end well, then you are divided. Part of you wants to move forward. Part of you is afraid of moving forward. It's like you're trying to move forward with a handbrake on. You're going to use a lot of gas and you may not go very far. So integrity means that you have integrated all of the different elements of your being, of your personality, so that you move forward as one. If you think of the metaphor of an orchestra, our path in personal development, from my point of view, is that we become like the maestro. All of these different instruments in the orchestra, they are important. But if all of them are playing whatever they want, however they want, we're going to have noise, not music. But if they are following the plan, if they're following the score, if they're following the maestro, then we're going to have music, and every element is important and every element will be highlighted when its time comes. So that's what integrity is about, that you can integrate all the different aspects of your personality and live a more wholesome, a more whole life.
How has self-confidence or self-doubt affected you getting to where you are?
So self-doubt is a visitor. I see self-doubt as a visitor. It comes and goes. And doubt in general, is this going to happen? This is difficult. This is unlikely. Like, these thoughts can come. Can I do this? I don't know. Maybe this is the maximum I can go and that's it. So these thoughts can come, but I know that I can choose which thought to believe in. And if I believe in the thought of doubt, it robs me of energy, and it makes it less likely that I will achieve anything great. If I believe in the thought of confidence, of self-belief, it doesn't mean that I'm always going to achieve what I set out to achieve, but it increases the chances. And so what I found out in my life is that if you have a balanced sense of confidence, a confidence that is not blind, that's not blinded by arrogance, then you are, by that very act of believing in yourself, you are increasing your chances for success and your chances of well-being.
There's a quote that I have been just really stewing in lately by Bob Proctor. And he says, both faith and fear require a trust in the unknown. And when you put it that way, so many people have this resistance to the confidence, like we talked about, and they're worried that it's going to be that sort of blind arrogance. And so it takes a lot for people to step into that because they feel foolish. Like, how am I going to trust this thing I don't have a lot of evidence for? Mm-hmm. But it's ironic when you really consider how much time we spend worrying And most of the time, we don't have a lot of evidence for those worries either. But that seems perfectly normal. That seems like being smart. And so if you can just take that and it's like, okay, if I'm going to spend all this time thinking about something that has not yet happened, regardless, why not go the positive route? Why not let my mind play with what's possible? What if this works out? Rather than the opposite, which tends to be our default. Why not go the positive route? Why not let my mind play with what's possible? What if this works out? Rather than the opposite, which tends to be our default.
Life is, there's so much unknown in life. Not only unknown, but unknowable. Things that we can never know at every step of the way. Any decision you make in your life, you may want to figure everything out and think it through and analyze everything. And to a certain degree, that's good and helpful. But there will always be so much that you don't know and cannot know. And still we need to live. Still we need to make decisions. So when we realize that our human life is moving through the unknown and there's no escaping that, then your only question is, how will I relate to the unknown? I can relate to the unknown with fear and anxiety, trying to hold on to the little known that I know as much as possible. Or I can relate to the unknown with a sense of courage, confidence, adventure. And life feels very different depending on this decision.
I've been taking my clients through a process of self-discovery and alignment and just learning to dream bigger than we tend to allow ourselves to dream. And a big part of that is the alignment part and just realizing how often we're giving our subconscious mind, the universe, whatever your belief in, that is the underlying force when we're not paying attention, when we kind of let ourselves go a little bit, we're giving mixed signals. It's like we say we want something, but then our inner voice is saying, no, we can't do that or we don't deserve it. And then our actions are doing something totally different. And once you start to align that, it's like you're propelled forward by a force that you didn't even really know was there. And that force is so great. I like to break it down to both the universe, the subconscious mind, because so much of our brain is working towards something. It's like we set it and we forget it, and it's working towards something. But if we're not conscious about what we're creating or about what we're moving towards, then it's still going to be going all these other ways. The thing that you said you wanted last year, the thing that all of your limiting beliefs are saying. And one of the things that you teach about is being undivided within yourself. So I'm curious, how do you approach that idea of being undivided? Is that the same concept of sort of aligning all of these parts of what you're going toward?
Yeah, I think being undivided, integrity, alignment, all of this is pointing to the same process. The first step with this is really awareness, that you are aware that there are different parts inside of you. Each of them has its own likes and dislikes and its own agenda and desires and fears, but they're all part of you, and no part of you is against you. It's against the system itself. It's just there's a part of you that likes to play safe so that it feels safe, and it's doing that for a good reason. So, but being in alignment means that you are taking the reins of your existence in your own hand, and you're deciding where you want to go. A metaphor that I use a lot in my work is a metaphor that comes from a very ancient book in India, the Upanishads. And it's the metaphor of the higher mind and the lower mind. So imagine a chariot. There is the charioteer and there are the horses. The horses are what I call the lower mind. They are our emotions, our reactive thinking. They are living outside in. They are triggered by the outside. They are just, impulsive. And then we have the charioteer. The charioteer is more purposeful. You could connect it to the prefrontal cortex in neuroscience. It's that part of us that has awareness. It's that part of us that has our core values, our dreams, and our virtues, what is most developed, most human about us. And the body is the chariot. Now, if you just leave the horses to their own devices, they are going to move here and there haphazardly. You are not going to get to your destination, and they may even break the chariot. Now, if the horses are well fed, they are well taken care of, but they are being guided by the charioteer, right? Then you will go somewhere. Then the passenger who is inside the chariot, and you can call that the soul if you like, then the passenger will arrive at its destination. You will live the purpose of your life. But unless you take some control over your inner world, then that's not going to happen. And again, we get to that the metaphor of the maestro. It's another way of looking at the same thing, that the maestro is coordinating all different aspects of the orchestra. So yes, living with alignment, it means that the charioteer in this case has a really clear vision and map. Like, this is what I care about the most in my life. This is where I want to go to. That's my aspiration. And then it can coordinate the horses to get there.
Last we spoke, we talked a lot about self-discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're looking at self-belief and self-discipline, how do you approach these two things at the same time? How do they interplay with going towards your goals?
First, my approach to self-discipline is very different. Just like my approach to self-confidence, when most people think about self-discipline, is that beating yourself up, is that mental toughness, pushing yourself. My approach to self-discipline is different. It's what you were saying. It is living life in alignment with your values, choosing that long-term, choosing the deeper, the thing that will give you a greater satisfaction rather than the instant gratification. So how does self-discipline relate with self-confidence? It's similar to the courage and confidence duo. One thing helps the other. When you are consistently taking action on your goals, when you keep your promises to yourself, when you're building good habits and breaking bad habits, when you're managing your time and your energy well, you tend to feel more confident. When you have all those elements or some of those elements going on for you, and they're elements of self-discipline, you feel more confident, you feel more capable, you feel that you can take on a lot and it's going to be okay because you see that you are in movement. At the same time, confidence creates discipline in the sense that you are not going to be disciplined taking action in any goal unless you have the confidence that you can achieve it, unless you have the confidence that that matters. You need to believe in yourself and believe in your goal, and then you can become disciplined about it.
You have this way of speaking in this one part of your book. You talk about the specific phrase, I must, that signifies commitment and focus. Tell us how you use that.
So that's one of the 5 elements of wise confidence. Determination is the first element. Determination is making a strong decision about what you want, about who you are, and not wavering from that decision no matter what happens, no matter what obstacles come. You still want what you want, and you're still convinced that you're going to achieve that goal. You still believe in yourself no matter how many times you fall. You fall 99 times, you get up 100 times because you believe in yourself. You are determined. And one of the ways to measure if we are determined or not, to measure our level of commitment, is to observe the language that we are using when we are describing ourselves and when we're describing what we want. If you say like, I would love to quit the 9 to 5 and create my own business. That is a desire, that is a wish. If you say that I will quit my 9 to 5 and start a business, that carries a completely different strength. And I noticed in myself and in other people that when we are in that mode of determination, we use very strong verbs. We say that I must do this. I must achieve this goal. I must lose weight. I must meditate every day. But it carries a different taste from that I must that comes from the outside. It's not that I must because people are expecting. It's not that I must because otherwise I'm not good enough. It's that sense of focus, like it has to happen. And I'm not thinking about any plan B. No, my energy is not leaking out into any plan B. There's only plan A, and it has to happen. Let me give you a simple story about this. When I became a dad for the first time 4 years ago, I was afraid to hold my newborn baby. I was afraid that I was going to drop her. And my wife was encouraging me to, no, hold the baby, it's going to be okay. And no, I was like, no, but what if I drop? Like, I cannot drop a baby. And then one day I realized, like, this is in my hands. It's a decision that I make, and that will influence my whole body and my subconscious mind. And so I decided that I will not drop my baby, no matter what. It's not an option. Dropping the baby is not an option. I will not drop the baby. I must never drop the baby. And when you speak like this, then it becomes something really strong. And then that went inside of me, and the fear disappeared, because I felt that I had that message was deep inside my body. It's almost like, even if I am sleepwalking and I fall, I'm going to fall with the baby still in my arms. I'm not going to drop the baby, because I am determined that that is not an option. And likewise, we see cases where there have been documented cases where the mother will lift a car to save her child from under the car, and she's completely unable to do that in any other circumstance, because it's lifting a bloody car. But in that moment, there is no other option. I must lift this car, and therefore she does. This I must or I will is a way of expressing a strong commitment, a resolution, a determination. And when we do that, all the energy of our mind, which is otherwise dissipated here and there, and maybe engaging in self-doubt and second guessing, all of that is gone, and all of that is pointing in a single direction. And then we get to touch our true potential and see what we're capable of.
I love that story. I'm just reminded how I don't think I ever lived in the land of I must until I become a mother. I've always just been a boundary pusher. I'm like, I could show up for this job. I could make this excuse. I really valued my free spirit, and it was too often to the detriment of anything I wanted to accomplish. And even when I started my business, there were just so many options. I could go this way, I could go that way. And yes, I got myself to accomplish things, but the I must did not fully set in until I became a mother, especially having a day where I'm sick and also have to care for them. I'm like, I cannot believe I'm capable of this, but I must. And eventually, though, it turns into an I do. Like, this is who I am. And so this is what I do. And when it penetrates to that level, that's when it takes on a life of its own. I don't have to think about it quite as often. And so I'm always holding out for that, where I'm like, all right, I must for now. And until it becomes I do, until it gains its own momentum and just integrates into my being. And so that's the light at the end of the tunnel, because I know so often people are like, I just can't live this way. It's too much willpower. It's too much determination. How do people sustain this? But that's the key, is you only have to do it for a while and then recommit every now and then. But it becomes so much easier through repetition.
It's like after a period of time, you got used to it. It's like in the example of that mom, if every day she was saving a baby like that, lifting a car, eventually she can lift a car anytime she wants, right? But the one metaphor that I use in the book is that, imagine our brain is like a light bulb. And if you pass 10 watts of current, it's going to light up a little bit. If you pass 100 watts of current, it's going to light up a lot more, right? And that current is the current of your commitment. If it's like, oh, let's try and see what's going to happen, well, I can guarantee one thing: you're going to see what's going to happen. That's all. But it's like, no, I'm not here to see. I'm not going to try this and see if it happens. I'm going to try this until it happens. Now, suddenly there's more current, there is more determination, there is more energy, more prana, however you want to call it, going through that. And once you get used to operating with more lamps on in your brain, then it's easier for you to tap into that. And you look back and sometimes you realize, like, oh, I was not really operating at my full capacity before.
We have discussed the difference between self-confidence and arrogance. But another topic you cover is the difference between self-confidence and self-esteem and self-efficacy. Why is it essential to understand these distinctions? We have discussed the difference between self-confidence and arrogance. But another topic you cover is the difference between self-confidence and self-esteem and self-efficacy. Why is it essential to understand these distinctions?
The distinction with self-esteem, it's I wouldn't say it's essential. It's just helpful, because a person may have high self-esteem and low self-confidence, or vice versa. They don't always come together. Self-esteem is how much you like yourself. Do I like myself? Am I valuable? It answers that question. And self-confidence answers the question, am I capable? Can I make things happen? And you may love yourself but not have a great opinion about your own capacity because you haven't trained that skill, that way of thinking. Or vice versa, you may have self-loathing, but you know that you can get things done when you focus. So they are two different things. It's just that usually there is a big overlap. Usually by increasing one, you also increase the other. But then self-efficacy is a little different. Self-efficacy is what most people would consider competence. It's confidence for a particular thing. So if you're good with computers, you have self-efficacy when it comes to computers, when it comes to problem with tech and the internet. But that doesn't mean that you feel confident when you're talking to a stranger, because they are different skills, and your confidence is isolated to that particular area in which you have competence. So self-efficacy is confidence for a particular area, and that is based on past successes and some other elements. While confidence is a more generalized self-belief. It is more connected to your self-image, to who you believe you are. If you believe that you are the type of person who has unlimited potential, and that you always figure out solution to problems, and that there's a lot of strength inside of you that you can tap into when you need, then you will be confident. And that doesn't have this is one thing that people don't realize, that confidence has no requirements. Competence has requirements. You become good at something, you're competent at it, you will feel that self-efficacy in that area of your life, which may not translate to any other area of your life. But with self-confidence, there are no requirements. The only requirement is that you choose to believe in yourself. Self-confidence is a synonym for self-belief. If you choose to believe in yourself, you believe in yourself and you will be more capable. If you choose to doubt yourself, you will doubt yourself. And by that very doubting, you become less capable.
And if you want a visualization of that, just spend time with a baby. They're just so confident. They'll walk right off the couch, just expecting to be caught. No qualms that they're about to fall 3 feet. My little baby's like, we call him a bulldozer. Or a wrecking ball. He just like dives into things. But then I'm reminded, I love what you said about, or reminding us about, how we can really like ourselves and also not believe that we're capable. It's like we all have that friend that is awesome to hang out with, but we would not ask her to watch our dog. It's like, I don't trust that you're going to remember to feed him. And so if we feel that way about ourselves, it's like, yeah, awesome personality, but not so good on the goals. Then there needs to be some sort of connection there.
Right, absolutely. Yes.
When we're talking about self-confidence and the kind of self-confidence that's unshakable, say somebody's listening right now and they're like, I just don't even know where to start. I don't know how to get there. And often we're told, well, it takes that first step. You have to start building evidence for this and then focus and whatever. But what if it's too scary to take that first step? How do you coach people into beginning that journey of building self-confidence?
It depends on how much time I have to work with them. If I have
12 minutes.
12 minutes. Well, I usually work with 12 weeks. I usually have 12 weeks. If I have 12 minutes, probably the thing that was going to give results most quickly is getting into the habit of facing your fears. In psychology, this is known as exposure therapy. And it's basically breaking down something that you are afraid of doing, something that brings negative emotion, perhaps anxiety for you. Break it down to the smallest bit of that action that is still somewhat uncomfortable, so that you're stretching yourself, but not too much that you freeze. And then you go and take action. You go and do that thing. It might be talking with a stranger. It might be publishing your guided meditation. It might be, telling a joke in a public setting. It might be asking for a discount. It might be going to a dance class. Like whatever it is that feels like it stretches you a little bit, but it doesn't freeze you, then go through that experience until you are comfortable. And when you're comfortable, what it means is that your comfort zone has become bigger. And if you do this every day, you are building that experience that, you know what, I can do much more than I thought I could. And then you don't doubt yourself so easily anymore, because you know you can break down something that seems scary or overwhelming or impossible into baby steps and go through them little by little and build that confidence that, hey, I'm doing this, I'm taking steps, I'm getting momentum, so I don't need to fear it anymore. I would say that that's probably the most practical thing I would say if I don't have much time with the person. And then the deeper work that would require more explanation and working together would be for them to rebuild their identity. Rebuilding identity is the core theme of the book, that we have our conditioned identity, which is how we were conditioned to be by our early childhood experiences, by our parents, the way we were brought up, friends, school, TV, and all of that. And that has imprinted certain beliefs inside of us. And for many people, they are limiting beliefs. They are not beliefs that help you be happy and successful in life. Now, that identity is not your truth. It's a story. It's the story of you. And when you realize that, then you can tell yourself a better story. You can choose to reinvent yourself. That if you grew up and whenever you made a mistake, there was an emotional outburst from one of your parents, and that created that emotional experience in you that failure is painful and I should never try something unless I'm sure I will succeed. No, that translates into fear of failure, perfectionism, and other things. And that is part of your conditioning. Now you can conceive of a different identity for yourself. You can conceive that who you are, and you can call it the new you, the new Giovanni, the new Susan, the new whatever. The new Giovanni doesn't think like that. He navigates the world very differently. He believes that he can face whatever challenge happens and that it's worth it to take risks in the direction of your dreams. And that's what makes life exciting. And that he believes that if he fails, that is not doesn't say anything about his value as a human being, that is just an opportunity to learn. And Giovanni thinks like this. And I'm going to think like Giovanni today as I'm going for my meeting, right? So you create an idea, you conceive of your aspirational identity. And the more you spend time with it every day, and there are some guided meditations I created for this, that image becomes clearer and clearer to the point where you can say, like, I'm going to wear my new identity like a hat, and I'm going to act as if I already have that confidence, that courage, whatever virtues your aspirational identity has. And then little by little, day after day, you teach your mind and your nervous system to operate from a radically different paradigm.
When I was first rebuilding my identity, I named her Mo. It was easier for me to put on the hat of Mo and just be like, what would Mo do? Than it was to really believe that I could do that. And that was so helpful for me because it was like this identity outside of me that I could just step into, act as if, but through repetition, that began to integrate. I don't need Mo anymore, although every now and then I like to call on her. But now I fully believe that is my Melissa-ness. But one of the biggest shifts that I ever had in my life was this realization, because for a long time I was on this search of self-discovery. I was like, what is my purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? And it was like, no matter what exercises that I would do, I would just get more confused because there were so many options. There were so many things to choose from. And then I realized that we're not discovering ourselves. We're creating ourselves. And that authentic self, the truth of my authentic self, is that I am a powerful creator of my reality. And when I started to see that as me, then all the possibilities became opportunities. And instead of trying to find the right one and being afraid that I was going to pick the wrong one, I got to choose which one brought me the most joy, which one I was most excited to move toward. And so I love that idea of realizing that we are rebuilding our identity, that we're creating our identities even when we don't realize that we're doing that, because every choice is bringing you toward one way or another. And so you've created the personality that you have up until now. Chances are it just hasn't been with as much as intention as is possible for you.
Yes, absolutely. I like to say, be a creator, not a creature. When we realize that we are the creator of our lives, and we take on that role, and we take full ownership, full responsibility for our lives, then we are living inside out. As I say in the book, there's a vision inside of us, and we are expressing that into the way we think, into the way we feel, into the choices we make, into our actions, and into our environment. Now, the opposite of this is that we are being a creature, and a creature lives and dies by its environment. So what other people are thinking of me, and this happened, so therefore I feel bad about it, and I don't know if I can still succeed or not. So when the environment is dictating who you are and what you feel, you are living outside in, and that is very disempowering.
I think back to my childhood, and I was an only child for most of the time. I had some step siblings eventually, but I always thought it was amazing how I had such a supportive environment. There's something about being an only child. I've talked about this with my husband before, where he had a lot of siblings, and so he had to figure out which way to stand out. Like, this is the athletic one, the artistic one, and they all kind of meshed, but they each had their own little identities. And I'm like, I'm going to do all the things. But growing up, after reading Carol Dweck's book on growth mindset, I was realizing how often I fell into that trap of being praised for so many things that eventually it got to a point where I actually didn't like to publicly try things that I didn't know that I was going to be good at. And it's such a slippery concept, because especially as a parent, I find myself overpraising my child. I want him to think he's incredible, because he is. And he is so smart at so many things. And I have to watch myself, because every now and then I'll be like, oh, you're so smart. You're so this. You're so great at this. And then I'm like, oh, dial it back. You're so great at trying. You always get back up when you fall. My 3-year-old knows the word resilience. Pretty proud of that one. but it's just interesting when we look back, because you talk about how childhood conditioning can contribute to low self-confidence, but sometimes it happens in these really sneaky ways, where it's not that we had these parents or a situation where people were telling us we can't. They were telling us we could, but in a way that shaped us to, not want to lose that identity by failing in front of people. How does that affect you? Have a 4-year-old. What are some of the things that come to your mind when you're raising him, where you're like, the knowledge I have, I almost wish I didn't have this knowledge because I'm worried that I'm ruining them all the time? Or is that just me?
No, it's, I raise her in a very deliberate way because of all my studies and personal growth and meditation. And she practices meditation with me since she's 3 years old, and she can barely sit still for 1 minute, and she dances in the middle, but everything goes at this stage. And I am basically helping her understand what she can do or what she cannot do. So, for example, sometimes when she is walking and she gets tired, or dare I say lazy, and she say, "Daddy, do you please carry me?" I say, no, you can walk by yourself. And she's like, no, I'm tired. And then one day I told her, when you are tired and you think you can't walk anymore, then you just say, willpower, I can do this. And then you run. And now she loves it. Like, when she gets to that point, I just say, just yell willpower. And then she does it and she runs. It's amazing.
That is adorable. I find myself wanting to, because I know that modeling is the most important piece, because they're not just listening to what we say, they're watching what we do. And that's where they really want to move towards more often. And it's so easy to be like, well, I can't do yoga or meditate or whatever in front of the kids because they'll distract me the whole time. But it does take this specific type of intention to be like, okay, I know I'm not getting anywhere. Maybe this is the work. I've heard of monks having to go meditate in Times Square and whatever. So maybe you just need to really do it around a toddler. but you've inspired me. I'm going to meditate in front of my son. Thank you for that. There's another question around, you have 3 pillars of self-confidence, and it's in 3 categories: aspiration, awareness, and action. Break those down for us.
So aspiration is you creating the person you want to be, designing your aspirational identity. And the clearer that is, the more you're going to have a shortcut to become that person. And there's so many self-development books and retreats and programs out there. But at the end of the day, it's about having clarity. What are the most important things for me in this phase of my life? Maybe it is to slow down and develop patience. Or maybe it is to raise my energy levels and learn to believe in myself. So you choose what I call 3 power words, that are those words that represent the things that your aspirational identity has that you don't have yet. There are those 3 qualities that would make a big difference in your life. And then you go and live and adopt and integrate those qualities through several different approaches. But basically the aspiration pillar is this: you creating a very clear image of the person you want to become. And then the awareness pillar, I talk about 4 core tools of awareness: mindset, witnessing, imagination, and embodiment. These are 4 different ways that you can deal with the thoughts that still come from the conditioned identity. So you have decided that this is who I'm going to be. I'm going to be Mo, or I'm going to be the new Geo. And this person is amazing. He is like this, or she is like this. But still, the old identity, don't forget that you have fed that identity for years or decades, and you have believed it into existence. And so it will continue raising its hand. You have fired it, and it will still show up to work because it's a strong conditioning. So how do you deal with those thoughts, those negative thoughts and emotions that come from your past? Well, there are these 4 tools. Then the action pillar is about taking action based on your new identity. And we talked about one way of doing this, perhaps the main way of doing this, which is to do things that scare you, to do things that would be very natural for the better self, for the new self, but that are outside of the box of the old self. So you are taking action, and action is the ultimate confirmation of belief. You start by saying, this is the new me. I believe this is me. I don't believe the old self anymore. I'm going to act as this new self from now onward. Then awareness. I'm going to use these tools, the mindset shifting, the witnessing of mindfulness, just observing things, etc., to deal with the aftermath of the past. And then I'm going to take action based on the new self.
I think your new self should be called Giovanni, because Neo means new.
That's a good one. Giovanni.
My mom jokes are coming out. But you also talk about making sure to highlight our strengths. What is your process for identifying those? I know a lot of people have trouble even bringing those to light because they've been living in this, either they've been self-deprecating, they haven't believed in themselves, they're so used to talking down about themselves, or even on the flip side, embodying humility and feeling like focusing on strengths is not aligned with that. How do you get people to really identify some of these strengths, especially the ones that maybe they haven't noticed before?
Everybody has strengths, and they are different from person to person. And it's only when we find our strengths and use our strengths in the pursuit of a meaningful goal that we really feel fulfilled, that we feel like, okay, I found my place in life. I'm using the best of me to pursue the best that I can conceive of. So that is our ikigai, in a way, our point of purpose. So it's extremely important to be aware of what are your core strengths. For one person, one of them might be creativity. For another person, creativity is not on the list at all, but maybe resilience is there, or maybe intelligence, or maybe patience, compassion, etc. When we know what are our strengths, then we should lean on our strengths rather than feel shy about them. It's not arrogant to know your strengths and to use your strengths. People who make you believe that it's arrogant to own your strengths, those people don't want you to be powerful. They want to keep you small, maybe because you are highlighting their insecurities, their inadequacies. You are going to be happy, and we are going to be happier when you live your strengths, because then you're going to be the best human being you can be. So I would encourage people to discover their strengths and then to make use of them, to choose paths in life that are based on your strengths, because then you're playing inside your element. And it's not that we shouldn't work on our weaknesses. Sometimes we should. Sometimes we should just accept them. Sometimes we should work on them. But the paths that we take in life, the things that we pursue, they need to be very aligned with our strengths. Then the journey will be easier and we'll feel more fulfilled doing that thing.
I always recommend that people give themselves the space to map out some of the things that they're good at and really look into them. I'm going to give an example. I had a friend who, he was one of those people that was like cocky and self-deprecating. Like he really embodied he was a car salesman. And he's like, I'm just the sleazy car salesman. I don't have other talents, but I can sell people anything. And I remember talking to him and I was like, do you know the creativity involved in sales? Do you know how you have to be on your toes? Do you know how you have to understand psychology and you have to get people to vision? And when I started breaking down this one skill that he just looked at because he had been told, oh, car salesmen are sleazy, but he makes money doing it. So he like grasped this identity that wasn't serving him besides monetary. He was just like, oh, whatever. I'm just going to own that my job is sleazy or whatever. And you could almost see something crack open in him when I told him what I saw in a salesperson and how you can, if you just lean into this different mindset around it, it might bring out a whole different energy. And it reminds me of what you talk about where we live in these limiting boxes. And some people, their boxes can look different. I'm usually calling them cages, but I kind of like boxes because we don't always realize that we're trapped inside. And that new identity requires the courage to just sort of step out of that box and see if there's also a life for you there. How do you coach people into dismantling the boxes that they find themselves in?
I'm glad that you mentioned courage, because it does take courage. It does take courage because your conditioned identity may be causing you pain, but it's still you. It still feels like you. It's the devil you know. Right? And so to step outside of that box, in the beginning, you're not going to be fully integrated into a new identity. You will be in the unknown, and people don't like the unknown. There's actually nothing scary about the unknown. It's our imagination projects scary things in the unknown. It's a field of infinite possibility, but the mind doesn't like the unknown. So as we are letting go of our conditioning, as we are trying to get out of the box, we'll be stepping on the unknown for a while, for a period of time. And then we need courage to continue forward. And we need faith that there's something better at the other side of this journey. And if we have these two forces of courage and faith, then we're going to continue moving forward. Otherwise, we're going to go back to our box very quickly, even though it's painful. So we need to find a way to understand that, like, hey, it's okay. It's going to feel like I'm disappearing, like I'm not myself anymore, like that the ground underneath my feet is gone, but that is part of the journey and it's going to pass. You're not going to be in that same state 3 months from now. So if we know that, if we believe in the process, if we trust the process, then that journey is smoother.
If you were to leave listeners with one piece of advice, one thing to think about to bring this all home, their little dose of mind love for the week on this topic, what would you give them?
I would say know who you want to be and then be that. That's the summary of everything.
Where can listeners find you if they're resonating? They want to read any of your amazing books. Also, they can go back, search for different episodes that you've been on of Mind Love as well, because those are excellent. But where would we send people today?
You can go to highermind.com. There you can find my books. And you can also find an app that I have created with some guided meditations and exercises to implement all of this.
All the links to this episode will be at mindlove.com/350. You heard him. The challenge for this week is to know who you want to be and then be that. Sounds simple, right? Like I mentioned in the beginning, though, this can be a little confusing because Over the years, we get so used to listening to the wrong voice. We get used to listening to our programming or our reptilian brain, the part that's trying to keep us safe from taking risks or going too far out of our comfort zones. If you are looking for a little extra help to get in touch with that voice, to get absolute clarity on who you are, what you want, and then begin to reprogram your mind for that unshakable confidence in yourself and your ability to make shit happen. That is exactly what Soul Strength Activation helps you with. And we are launching our second cohort. And I have to tell you, the testimonials, the transformations from the last group were mind-blowing. So I'm teasing out information for the next cohort little by little. If you want to get on that list, please reach out to me at mindlovemelissa on Instagram, or make sure to be on the list for the Morning Mind Love, because I'll be sharing everything you need to know and when straight to your inbox. Spots are limited, so if you are ready to completely change your life in a fraction of the amount of time that it would take you if you were to pursue the trial and error route, reach out to me, get on the list, we'll talk about it, see if it's right for your situation. So again, reach out to me on Instagram at mindlovemelissa. If you want to experience a similar transformation while basking in luxury, we also have a retreat coming up. And I just wanted to say a quick disclaimer about this, because I know when I was first planning this, I got all excited and I said, I think I'm going to do these regularly. I am realizing as this unfolds and as I realize how much work it really takes to just throw together a beautiful, transformative, luxurious retreat with all of the best that Southern California has to offer. It is a lot more work than I anticipated it to be. So this may be the only Mind Love retreat. So if you're interested in getting in on the potentially only Mind Love retreat, find out more at mindlove.com/retreat or reach out to me on Instagram at mindlovemelissa. And you can find any of my amazing sponsors at mindlove.com/sponsors. And that's all for today. So thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.